You're 3 hours into a sportive, a long ride, a club run, something you've been looking forward to. Doesn't really matter what, but you've been feeling really good all day. You've drunk, you've eaten, nothing went wrong, and you were just really careful about your effort. And then somewhere in that last section, you're almost home, it starts to fall apart. There's a climb you'd normally get up fine. Today, it's taking everything. Or maybe the group lifts the pace slightly and suddenly you're hanging on. You're on your own, 30 kilometers from home, wondering where the energy is going to come from. The frustrating thing is you haven't done anything different. You look at your power, it's the same as an hour ago. You know you can do this. Same road, same bike, same you, but the effort that felt manageable now feels like threshold. And the effort that felt like threshold is absolutely impossible. So what's changed? Nothing external. What's changed is happening inside you, and it's been happening the whole ride. It just took until now to matter. So there's something a bit odd about how we measure cycling fitness. You do a test, FTP test, ramp test, whatever it is, you get a number. You train for a while, you test again, the number goes up, great, progress. Everything's moving in the right direction. But that test, whatever test is, happens under particular conditions. You're rested, you're fresh, you're tapered, or at least taking it easy the day before, maybe a couple of activation efforts. You've eaten properly, slept properly, you know you're about to do the test and you've turned up ready to produce your best number. And that's useful. It tells you something real about what you're capable of, but it's answering a very specific question. What can you do when everything is set up perfectly? Long rides don't ask that question. Long rides ask something different. They ask, what have you got left after 3 or 4 hours of things not being perfect? After that headwind and the early hills and the bit where your mate's half wheeling you the entire time? What's your power then? And that's a completely different question. The uncomfortable truth is that most cyclists have never actually tried to answer it. They know their numbers fresh. They have no idea what happens to those numbers under fatigue. So researchers have been working on this problem and they have landed on a term. You've probably heard a lot of it recently: fatigue resistance or durability. And the definition matters because it's easy to mix up with something else. Durability isn't endurance. Endurance is whether you can complete the distance. Can you last 4 hours? Can you get to 100 miles? Can you finish the sportive or finish the race? That's endurance. Simple as. Now, durability is different. Durability is what state you're in when you get to the end, when it's 4 hours in, when it's the last few kilometers of the race. Two riders can both finish a 160k ride. They've both got the endurance, but one of them arrives at that final climb with most of their 5-minute power still intact. The other arrives with half of it. Same endurance, they both got it at the same time, but very different durability. And here's what makes it more complicated. Durability isn't one thing. It's not a single number you can measure. Yes, your sprint power decays over a long ride, your 5-minute power decays, your threshold decays, but they don't all decay at the same rate or in the same way. Durability is a profile. Now, you might be someone that holds sustainable power really well, but loses a lot of punch. You can still grind away, but you can't respond to attacks or accelerations or slight surges. Now, you might be the opposite. Your steady power falls off, but you know that when you need to sprint for that town sign or 200 meters to go, you can still sprint because you still got that kick when you need it. Now, riders with different profiles will suit different situations, but the point is that durability isn't a single quality. It's a collection of qualities and they can vary independently. As I mentioned, it's not one mechanism, it's several, and they interact with each other, which is part of why it's so hard to pin down that exact reason. Now, your muscles store glycogen. That's your main fuel for harder efforts, but it doesn't deplete evenly. Some fibers run low before others, and as those fibers empty out, your body has to recruit different fibers to maintain the same power. The problem is those fibers are less efficient. They cost more oxygen, more energy, more effort to produce the same work and the same amount of ATP. So already, same power, higher cost. Now, at the same time, there's cardiovascular drift. You probably notice this when you're doing a turbo ride. You try and keep it at zone 2 and all of a sudden it rises up towards the end. Your heart rate creeps up even though you're not going any harder. The stroke volume drops. The system's working harder to deliver the same result. And there's a neuromuscular effect. Your ability to produce those short, sharp efforts often decline early and disproportionately. Something about the connection between wanting to produce power and actually producing it becomes less reliable. All of this is happening at once. And these processes don't just add up, they feed into each other and funnel down. Glycogen depletion changes which fibers you recruit. Different fiber recruitment changes efficiency. Worse efficiency increases oxygen demand. High oxygen demand increases cardiovascular strain. It's a cascade. And this is why the collapse, when it happens, often feels sudden. You're managing multiple systems, staying just ahead of multiple limits, then one of them tips it over and they all go down together. There's a way of visualizing this that I find helpful. Think of capacity as a range. You've got a ceiling, which is your maximum, and you've got a floor, which is the minimum cost of sustaining effort. When you're fresh, there's plenty of room in between them. You can ride at a hard pace and you've still got headroom. Space above you for when you need to respond to anything. Over the course of a long ride, two things happen. So this ceiling here, we've seen it in horror films. It's an absolute trope. You're going to get squeezed. Your ceiling comes down, right? Your maximum capacity drops. Now, research suggests VO2 max itself can decline by 5 to 10% over prolonged exercise. So the most you can probably produce is less than it was. Now, also, your floor is coming up. The cost of producing a given power increases. The efficiency drops. You need more of your available capacity to produce the same watts. And then over the course of a longer ride, it comes down even more. Down, down, and all of a sudden, you're stuck in the middle here, getting squeezed from the top and the bottom. So the power you sat comfortably on in the middle of your range at the start of the ride is now pressing up against what's left of your ceiling. Same number on the screen, completely different physiological situation. This is why two riders can produce identical power all day and have completely different experiences at the end. One has retained more ceiling and the other has kept the floor. They've still got room, but the other has been squeezed until there's nothing left. So same watts, and you can't see it from the outside. So this explains something that frustrates a lot of riders. You improve your test numbers, great, threshold goes up, 5-minute power goes up. You're objectively fitter than you were 6 months ago. And yet when you do a long event, you have the same experience you always have. You're fine for 3 hours, and then you're falling apart in the 4th. The fitness gains are real, but they're fresh state gains. Raise the ceiling when it's at its highest, but you haven't actually changed how quickly that ceiling drops, or how fast the floor rises up from below, or how much room you retained under fatigue. Durability is separate from fresh state fitness, related, but absolutely separate. You can improve one without improving the other. And if you keep testing fresh and training to improve fresh numbers, you might actually be completely missing the thing that's limiting you. Now, this isn't speculation. When researchers look at athletes with similar fresh state profiles, they find large differences in how well those athletes perform under fatigue. The fresh numbers don't reliably predict the fatigue numbers. It plays out everywhere, not just in racing. On a sportive, durability determines whether that final climb is hard or horrific. You've got the 5-minute power to get up it if you're fresh. The question is whether you've still got it after 140k. On a club run, durability determines what happens when the pace lifts in the final half hour. Everyone's been riding together all day, sitting in the wheels. You've got some tiredness there, but some riders can respond to the acceleration and some can't. That is durability. Even when you're riding solo, durability determines the experience, whether the last hour is going to be satisfying or just survival, crawling home, whether you get home feeling good or feeling wrecked. You don't have to race for this to matter. You don't have to race for this to matter. You don't even have to ride with other people. You just have to do rides where fatigue accumulates and demands keep coming. That's most rides worth doing. So here's the bit that matters. Durability isn't fixed. It's not something you're born with. It's not mental toughness or grit or whatever people want to call it when they don't have a better explanation. It's a trainable quality. It responds to a specific stimulus, and the research shows something interesting. Durability can even improve when fresh state fitness doesn't change much. The adaptations, yes, are related, but they're not identical. You can get more durable without lifting your FTP, and you can also lift your FTP without getting more durable, which means if you've been stuck, if your test numbers keep improving, but your long ride experiences stay the same, you might be training the wrong thing. Not wrong in a general sense, just wrong for the specific problem that you're trying to solve. I've got a whole video coming on how to actually train durability. It's really quite interesting. But before that, it helps to understand what's happening in a bit more detail. Why that ceiling drops, why the floor rises, and why some people preserve capacity while others lose it. So in the meantime, here's something you can do. Next time you do a long ride, pay attention to what happens to different types of effort. Your sustainable power, can you still hold a reasonable tempo an hour for, or does it feel like you're grinding through treacle? Your kick and your punch, if you had to respond to a surge, could you? Or has that top end responsiveness completely disappeared? And your recovery, when you go hard for a minute, how quickly does your heart rate drop back down to baseline? If you could test this formally, ride for 3 hours and then do a hard 5-minute effort and compare it to what you'd expect fresh. Or ride for 3 hours and see if you can still sprint for 30 seconds without tying up and feeling like death. Or just notice the climb you know well, the bit of road where you always push on. How does it compare after 3 hours versus when you're fresh? That tells you something about your profile. It tells you what kind of durability work might help most. Most riders have never thought about this. They know what they can do fresh. They brag about what they can do fresh. They've never asked what actually happens to that under load. So fitness testing tells you your potential, what you're capable of when everything lines up. Durability determines your access to that potential, how much of it is still there when the ride gets long and the legs get tired. If you've ever felt good for hours and then come apart at the end, durability might be the missing piece, not fitness, not pacing, not mental toughness and grit and fortitude. A specific physiological quality that responds to specific training, but only if you know it needs training in the first place. So in the next video, we're going to go into what's happening in a bit more detail, the mechanisms behind the squeeze, why your body responds to prolonged effort the way it does, and what that means for the final hour of any long ride. So saddle up and I'll see you there. Cheers.